Hello, everybody. I'll say that again. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Di. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm sure Di will let me know if there's any issues. Great to be with you today. So yes, today's session is how to be great at community engagement. But first, let me just introduce myself. My name is Misty Bauer, and I am one of the community business advisors here at Plunkett. This webinar is all about community engagement. The aim of it is to help you understand why community engagement is important and to give you an overview of how to engage your community through every stage of the life of your community business. So when we talk about community engagement, we mean about much more. It's much more than just listening or talking to the people that you know in your community. And it's more than just a survey, although this is really important and we will touch on that later. This one definition describes community engagement really well. That's not going to move now. Let's try again. There we go. So this one definition describes community engagement really well. It is working collaboratively with those in your geographical location who have the same special interests or common issue to address as you. So in the case of community business, it's often a common issue of saving a pub or shop from closure, or a community building such as a community space or church from being converted into housing and therefore no longer accessible by the community. Or it's about launching a new service based on a specific community need. But why is this collaboration so important? Well, in the context of community-owned businesses, there are three reasons. Firstly, community businesses are, by their very nature, community-owned and run. Most of you will be here today because you either run, want to run, or are interested in community-owned business. So community ownership requires community engagement. It cannot be a tokenistic add-on. You need your community. And a community business is locally rooted. It represents your community through membership and engagement. It's controlled by and accountable to the community, so they should be involved in the decision making. And you are trading for the benefit of your community. So you must ensure that the business serves the needs that the community has most effectively. So it really makes sense then that without community engagement, there really is no community-owned business. Secondly, you want it to be successful. You will need funding, volunteers, and the support of your community in using and championing the business. So to increase the likelihood of success of your business, you need the community firstly to understand and believe in that community business. When the community see the campaign as their campaign, the shop or the pub as theirs, they will be much more likely to get involved. So you need them to understand what you're trying to achieve, why it's important and beneficial to their community, and how they can get involved. So to be successful, you want to engage your community as early as possible. The earlier you engage them, the more likely they are to feel part of it and come with you on the journey. And you should engage them at every stage of the process to increase that possibility of its success, setting you up to succeed longer term. Another measure of success is the impact that it has on the residents of that community. So by engaging the community, you can understand and respond to their needs and wants, increasing this success measure. Lastly, I'm afraid to say, but you don't have all the answers, ideas, or skills. So there may be others in your community that have great ideas or skills that you need to make this dream a reality. And you might learn new information from people in the community that you didn't know. So a question you may have then is, when should you engage with your community? Well, the answer is at every stage. In the webinar that we ran about taking your community business from an idea to reality, we set out 4 stages of a community business. For this webinar, we've combined them into 3 stages. Discover, which is where you're exploring your idea. Develop and launch. This is where you are getting the business up and running, raising funds, business planning, etc., and thriving. This last stage is hopefully the longest. This is when you're in business from opening and hopefully for years to come. So community engagement looks a bit different at each stage, and that's what we're going to go through today. And there are three key principles that I want to share with you today that remain the same at every stage and will enable you to engage your community effectively. So let's have a look at those principles. So it's fairly simple. The first one is listen. As a community-owned business, as we said, you want to hear people's views. You want them to understand what's going on. You want to mitigate their objections. You want to understand any objections they might have. You want to glean ideas from them. You want to check there is actual buy-in for this business. And listening helps you to establish exactly what the community need and want. Communicating is about keeping the community updated, bringing them on the journey with you. And by listening and communicating, the idea is that you create an open and transparent feedback loop, which hopefully ensures success and reduces that risk of opposition. Because when people have a say and can see that what they say is being heard and acted on, they develop a sense of ownership, and that enables you to build consensus on the vision. Lastly, actively engaging. You need the community to have that community-owned business. So this principle is about building the strength, capacity, and longevity of the business. So let's dive in and have a look at how these three, how this cycle works in the three stages of the community business. So the purpose of community engagement during the discover phase is firstly to establish if there is any need at all. Secondly, to establish if there is appetite for what it is you're offering to meet that need. How engaged and enthusiastic will people be? Is there real buy-in? And thirdly, it's about gathering a supportive community who will help to buy, to run and support the business or the building. But before you can engage with your community, you need to understand who your community is. Who they are, where they are, and what they are like. And we do that through a process called community mapping. Sounds very grand, but really what we do is we start with a map. Very simple. When you've got your map, so we suggest you find a map with as much detail as possible of your local village, your local area, what you consider to be your community initially, with perhaps an extension either side because you want to look to the extremes of your community. And then you want to think about questions such as, where are the boundaries of our village or of our community? Will our business actually serve wider than those boundaries? Maybe the parish, maybe there are other villages or other communities that might utilise our business. Where do people actually live in the village? Do they actually live anywhere near where this business is going to be sited? Then have a look at the existing facilities in the village. Are there classes that take place in the village hall? Are there allotments? Is there a mobile library that comes in? This gives you a picture of where people are and what they do in the village, and where you can find them to engage with them, and what they are already interested in. So you're looking for who, where, and for what they are doing. Once you've agreed the geographic boundaries of your community by looking at your map, you can look at who exists within that space. So to research your community or who makes up your community, you can use things like the census. The 2021 census is the most up-to-date one, and that's freely available. You might find more localized parish data, you might have a neighborhood plan. And this enables you to research who is your community. So you're thinking, how many people, how many households, which are different statistics. What kind of age bracket do we have? Do we have a lot of young families? Are there a lot of retired people? What's the socioeconomic status of our community? Are people going to be able to afford to invest in this or to buy what it is we are selling them? And the employment status will help you with that as well. So this will help you know who you need to engage and give you some ideas about how you can go about doing that. And it also gives you an opportunity, looking at this map and looking at your data, to think about who the key stakeholders are in the village. If you have a primary school, is there a head teacher, for example? And then using the information you've gleaned from this mapping, it can help you identify, for example, who else comes through to use the facilities you've identified. If you've identified a primary school, are there people that come through and use that don't live in your area? Is there a cycle route that goes through your village? Once you've done that, once you've gleaned all the information you possibly can about who and where and what in your community, Stop and think before you move on. Who else is there? Who don't we know about that we should know about? What diversities do you have in your community? Are there groups of people who have a particular need that perhaps you haven't identified yet? Is there a care home? Are there young families, etc.? Are there temporary residents? Do you have people coming and staying? There are lots of holiday cottages. Do you have a high proportion of second homeowners? So from here, you can then use all of this information to separate people into different key groups and differentiate your engagement according to that. So it's about thinking about how your listening and comms communications is accessible for those people in your community, rather than just an off-the-shelf list of things to do. So we've thought about who the community is. Now we're going to think about how we give them opportunities to be heard. So it's back to these three principles. In the discover phase, listening is about asking for opinions. It's about helping to identify the needs in your community and gathering ideas from your community. So you actually want to find out what they think because it's about that community ownership. So there's two key methods that we encourage people to do at this stage. One is key conversations. Think about individuals who would be pertinent to have on side from the start or who may be helpful to your cause. For example, there might be parish councillors, potential major donors, local businesses. You might have neighbours adjacent to where the business is sited. Or there might be community members who perhaps are usually objectionable to change and you might want to get on side at the beginning. Speak to these people early, speak to them face to face if you can. Tell them your idea. You can also invite them to see the plans, show them round, etc. But give them a chance to ask questions and add their ideas and thoughts into the mix. And ask them who else you should be speaking to. That's how you might find about those groups that are missing from your list. Then the most important thing at this stage is a survey. This is where you can open up the listening to the whole community. This is a really key part of your initial consultation and enables you to hear from a really wide range of individuals, those ones that you identified in the mapping activity and those that are missing from that space. Plunkett has a variety of templates on our website of surveys which you can adapt to suit your needs. But to give you an idea, you should be asking questions such as whether they would support the idea, what benefits they think it might bring to the community, what facilities or services they would like, whether they would like to get involved or even contribute financially. This slide just shows you a snippet of the types of results that you can get from this listening exercise, which you can use for funding applications, business plans, and you can see how helpful that information is. So we recommend that you make your survey available in as many ways as possible. Create a website, have a Facebook link, put paper copies in local shops, doctors' surgeries, etc. You can go door to door. You can have a QR code in your community on posters that people can scan. Think about how to make it accessible to your community, how you can reach everyone, and go back to that mapping activity. A survey is also a really great way to capture people's details and ask if they'd like to be kept informed. Keep them in a secure spreadsheet, but this way you can get in touch with these people who you actually have permission to get in touch with, and you can communicate with them directly. So those are just a couple of ways that you can listen to your community at this point, but you really need to consider how best to give your community opportunities to share their ideas and opinions, when and where is best for them, and keep referring back to that mapping exercise. Any data that you collect at this point actually helps with your communication. So communication at this stage is often in the form of a more formal public meeting, or maybe a series of meetings. These can be held at your local village hall or in the venue itself. And here you can present the findings from the survey to date. You can allay any concerns, you can answer questions, and you can ask people to sign up for things. You could also invite some of those key stakeholders we talked about to be on a panel, for example. Get your parish councillor, your head teacher, local hobby associations, etc., to be on a panel, and people can ask them questions about what they think about the idea, how they might use the space, etc., and what benefit they think it will have for their community. Whatever you do, try to make it engaging. You'll need to include basic elements like a survey showing plans, that kind of thing, but really make it creative and try and have fun. Other things to think about when communicating are Are you able to communicate with everyone in the same way? Or do you have a large deaf community, for example, in your village that may need their communication presented in a different way? What challenges might people face? What challenges might you face accessing people and communicating fairly with everybody if you've got a more spread out community, for example? This slide, when you receive the slides, there's a little video on here, and the photograph in the bottom right-hand corner is from the Amulet Theatre, which is a theatre that is just about to launch its share offer in Shepton Mallet. And they're a good example of being creative in their approach. For months and months, as they were in their discover phase, they had a stall at the farmers market where they consulted with all the people coming through the town there, and they asked people to complete the survey and answered their questions, etc. They've also been given temporary access to the ground floor, which is what the video shows you, where they've put on open days and pop-up events, and they've laid it out inside so that people can see how they might use the future building. So you can watch that video then when you receive the slides, if that interests you. The last principle of actively engaging the community at this stage has already happened to some extent in the previous principles, completing the survey, attending the meeting, etc. But you really want to involve them beyond that at this stage. You want to start thinking about recruiting or maybe expanding your steering group. What skills do you need? Who has capacity? What diversities need to be represented? Some people might be advisors rather than on the steering group or offer pro bono skills. And the community can also get involved in pledging their support, financial support, in advance of any share offer you might put out, which would show you initial buy-in. You could also do creative things like launch a drawing competition for any signage or a mural that you might be creating, or ask people to draw ideas for what events they would like to see. You could ask people to be ambassadors on their street so they can go and speak to people about ad hoc volunteering opportunities, help people to complete the survey, etc. You could also list out all the volunteering jobs that you need at present and that you will need, and ask people at the meeting to sign up to them. Or you could have an online volunteering portal, which is as simple as a Google form or a Microsoft form that you put on your website, and people can sign up to be on your volunteer list when they have the time. So moving on to the second stage of your business, you've done all your discovery work, done all your exploration, and you're moving forwards to developing the business and launching it. This is the stage where you will be raising funds, business planning, and doing all that behind the scenes work to get the business up and running. But it doesn't mean to say you stop engaging the community. You still need to grow your team with volunteers. This is the all hands on deck stage and usually takes longer than the discover phase. You need to secure your funds and you need to keep raising awareness. So we go back to listening. We really recommend that you continue to get out into the community at this stage and make sure everyone has been heard. And this is your chance to delve a bit deeper, to answer questions and mitigate any further concerns. So how do you go about delving a bit deeper? Well, think back to those activities and facilities that you identified in your mapping and those groups of interest you identified. Think about how you could listen more to their specific needs or concerns. So, for example, you could speak at your local WI or at a quiz night, or visit the yoga class with permission from the teacher, or join in the class if you want to. You could ask questions when you're there related to their activity. For example, how might the yoga class want to use the pub? Or what might the WI want to be sold in the shop? And give people time for question and answered and to talk to you afterwards. You could also visit other local businesses at this stage and ask how they might want to collaborate, what concerns they might have about your shop or pub or whatever your business is opening. Then when you've heard them, don't ignore them, address those concerns and let them know you've addressed them. You could hold a stall at the summer fete, a school summer fete, to answer questions. You can set up easy ways for people to make comment or questions, so a suggestion box in the village hall, for example, or a virtual one, again with a Google form where people can put their question or comment with their email address. And continue to build those relationships and listen to those stakeholders you identified at the beginning. This slide shows some examples of ways that people have communicated at this stage of their business development. An open event is a great idea, a bit like the Amulet where they open the space. If you can arrange it on site, then great. If you can't, use a different local space, something nearby or even outside. You can show people the plans here if you've got plans for a new building or to renovate or just what the shop might look like. You could, if you've got the building, you can even mark out the areas where things might be. You can give people the latest results of the survey, those lovely graphs that we saw earlier. You can ask people to sign up to the newsletter and complete the survey if they haven't done that already. You can give out offers of a forthcoming share offer. You can have fundraising activities, raffles, games, that kind of thing. You could do a pictorial target sign communicating how close you are to raising your funds. And you can have things like refreshments or fun activities for families or whatever is appropriate for your demographic in your community. This is a really good time to start a newsletter as well. All those email addresses you collected at the beginning and you're continuing to collect, that enables you to send a regular newsletter update to all of those people. They want to know what's going on. So you can use those listen, communicate, and actively engage principles in your newsletter. Remind them of the suggestion box or ask a specific question so that you can continue to listen to them. You could tell them the latest fundraising total or where the plans are at, and you can ask them to volunteer or to spread the word. So there are various things you can put in your newsletter. Now is also the time to start thinking about wider publicity. So aiming to keep those both supporters and the wider community informed on your progress. So you can advertise at events, key deadlines, communicate news in a variety of ways, just maintaining your profile and momentum. So this might look like social media or your website. A good example is you could interview a local stakeholder about why they think the community business would be good for the village, post that video on your website, put a link on the Facebook page, put a link on other community Facebook pages, so you're getting that publicity out there. If you don't have your Facebook page and website by this point, I do recommend you set those up. They don't have to be, a website doesn't have to be expensive, and there's often somebody in the village who loves doing that kind of thing, and you can engage them in that. You can go out, as we say, and talk to the interest groups that we talked about before. You could hand out your printed newsletter in the pub and shop and ask people to sign up to the email version. You could also send your newsletter via any pre-existing communication methods. So you might have a village email or a parish newsletter, etc. And then think about PR opportunities further afield. We've seen some lovely examples of stories in local newspapers, which often gets put online, or again in parish magazines, that kind of thing. And then think about using your community connectors. Who are those people who are good at who are connected in wider than your current community, your councillors, MPs? Maybe there's even a local celebrity in your village. Or maybe it's just Mabel who knows everybody because she's lived in the village for 40 years and you want to engage her in helping to spread the word. And continue to build that email newsletter list. Even a QR code on a poster all around your village takes people a minute to sign up there. The main thing at this stage is with communicating is about being visible. You've got to keep the business in people's minds and make it fun so it's a positive memory. And then actively engaging people in what you are doing. Get them to take part in the action. So here you are looking to increase that active participation from the community at this stage. It's about thinking about how you can give everyone in the community a chance to get involved. Look back at your mapping exercise. And this may depend on their skills, their time, and even their desire to get involved, but it could be things like engaging potential volunteers. That might be for something you need now, might be in cleaning up the building, for example, or professional skills, or it might be getting ready for when you open and volunteers you'll need then. Speak to people who can speak to people, like Mabel and the councillors, those who are good at building relationships. Identify potential investors and supporters, those who you really know, you really want to invest and you know would be keen to do that and are able to do that. And get the community involved in choosing things, in voting and decision making. If you've got a choice of logos, get them to be involved in choosing that, opening times, all those kinds of things which will affect them. Ultimately, here you are beginning to build membership of the community business. This is the very start of that membership process. So again, use your chance to be creative. Think what would work in your community to increase publicity or get those practical jobs done. One way of increasing publicity, a fun way, is, for example, if you're opening or reopening a community shop, how about getting people to calculate the food miles they will save by walking to their local shop and buying their shopping rather than driving to their local Tesco's? So there's lots of ways you can actively involve your community. Just get them doing something. This slide shows a good example. This is the Six Bells. They put on various events. This is one of them, a pop-up event in another local venue where they've done an evening of music, etc., and had an opportunity to talk to people about reopening the Six Bells. And there's also another video here, which again you can watch when you receive the slides. And in that video, they do a little update about what they've been doing, and then they're very specific about how people can get involved. We need this at this point, and they ask people to engage in those ways. Videos are great because they're a great way for lots of different people to engage. Try and put captions on them if you can to make them more accessible. So we're now at the point of thriving, we hope. Getting to that point, you've opened your business and your focus is on growing your business and helping it thrive. Guess what? Community engagement doesn't stop here. It is really tempting at this point to reduce your community engagement because you are so busy with the day-to-day, so busy serving customers, ordering things, etc. And you might also find that some people in the community who are really enthusiastic at the beginning are maybe a bit tired of hearing about it now in the same ways, and that you might find their initial engagement starts to wane. But don't give up. This is a chance to dig in, and it's really, really important. Those community-owned businesses that continue to listen, continue to communicate with, and continue to actively engage their community are generally more successful than those who don't. So in this thrive stage, you need to be building a customer base. You need to be ensuring that there is democratic ownership, and you need to look for ways to reduce your costs, for example, through volunteers. So what does it look like? Listen, communicate, and actively engage. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern now. Listening at this stage is about making sure that you provide what your customers want and finding out if you are providing what it is they have said they want. So make sure people's views are considered when you're thinking of making any significant changes, like change to the car park or your opening hours. So engage them in that process. Listen to what they want, and then show them that they have been listened to. Make sure you share the results of the polls. It's a good idea to run a short annual survey, maybe up to 5 questions, and you can ask people when they come into the shop, or you can email people on your newsletter list, just to make sure that things that you are concerned about, you get their opinion on, and you're hearing their thoughts and ideas. And then obviously you will listen to them at the AGM. You'll have to have an annual AGM. There are formalities that you need to go through, but that doesn't mean to say you can't make the rest of the AGM more interactive. You can give people a chance to ask those questions and make suggestions. You could have big pieces of paper with questions that you want people to answer, and people can go around and write them on or use post-it notes or whatever. You could put up a suggested list of events that you're thinking about putting on for the year and ask them to sort of tick the ones that they think are the best or that they would come to. You can do the same things online for those who can't attend, and use something like Mentimeter, if you've heard of that, which is a really simple online way of recording people's information, and it automatically gives you graphs and stuff. It's wonderful. So some of this is communicating as well as listening at this stage, but a lot of the comms at this stage is about building and retaining your customer base. So by identifying your customer groups that you want to grow, you can target your comms more effectively. Some of that will have been done in your initial mapping, but as your business grows, you will get to see who your real target customer is, who is actually coming through the door, and where the gaps are, who is missing, that you really want to come and use your business. So communication to build your customer base consists of several elements. You need to be aware of all of these things. You need to be aware of creating awareness. This comes through things like branding. Doesn't have to be very expensive or very grand. A simple logo, one or two colors that you use on all your materials and in your premises. Maybe some images. Maybe things like uniforms, if people wear t-shirts or aprons. And even the way you lay things out is creating that awareness. You can also create awareness by using PR opportunities. We talked about using local papers when it's your first birthday or you've had a special achievement or won an award. All those things help to keep the business in people's minds in different ways, perhaps to what you did in the previous stages. Another thing you need to be doing is generating interest. Don't presume that people know what you do, or that you're there, or that they're as excited about it as you are. You need to be explaining the whys to them. And also make sure new residents are informed. Do you have welcome packs that you send to your new residents, telling them all about what you do and why you're there? A big part of building your customer base is about building that loyalty. So it's about knowing who your customer is and what they want and think about why they keep returning. And those are kind of questions you can ask in your survey. But the great thing about a community business is not just a general, our customer is women in their 40s. You know your customers, or you should know your customers. So your customer might be Susan, who lives on her own and has a dog and is in her 40s. So have a look at who your customer is and how you can build the loyalty for those individuals as well as the groups. And remember your shareholders at this point. They own the business too, so make sure you're communicating with them and building their loyalty to the business. And lastly, driving sales. This is a lot about advertising, drip feeding, being varied. So you might be advertising special offers or events, but just advertising that your shop or pub or your business exists. It's amazing how quickly people forget when it's out of their consciousness or where they're not driving past it every day. You can do things like tastings at school fetes, or a whole bunch of other activities where you're actually going out and reminding people that you exist. You're probably thinking this all sounds like it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of skill. Well, it does take time, but you can keep it simple, find out what works for you and do that well. But we do recommend that you allocate a person or a small team even to do this. They don't have to be on your steering group or on your committee. They could be shareholders. They could just be some of your volunteers who are good at this kind of thing. Allocate responsibility to them. Make sure they know what they're doing and they've got what they need. You do need to plan it. You'll make a lovely plan for the launch of everything that you're going to do, but we recommend that you continue to make a plan. At this time of year, we're going to do this. At this time of year, we're going to do that. Take advantage of, Valentine's Day and take advantage of Christmas. But you need to plan for those things ahead of time. Planning for Christmas 2 weeks before just won't, you won't be able to engage people enough to drive the business. And then actively engaging once you are thriving and once you're up and running. We've talked about the AGM. There's opportunities for them to engage there. They can vote, they can nominate, they can even step up to the committee. But it's not just about being on the committee and actively engaging. There's lots of volunteering opportunities. So those of you who run community-owned businesses will know this. But you do need ongoing recruitment process for your ad hoc things, like we're having a big clean up on Saturday, but also for succession. Keep advertising that you need volunteers, because you never know when somebody's circumstances might change and you have a gap in your timetable. There might be local groups who want to take responsibility for something. Do you have allotments that you identified on your map, and therefore a gardening group who might want to make the front of your shop or your pub look beautiful and take responsibility for that? There might be people who love organising events or fundraising activities or have pro bono skills that they can offer on a regular basis. People can get involved in events, either organising them or coming to them. Musical events, quiz nights, poetry nights, and it's not just events at pubs or venues like that. In shops, you can do tastings, suppliers come in and do tastings. You can have special shopping events, those kinds of things. Ultimately, you want your community to be your customers. That's how you want them to actively engage, but you have to encourage them and show them how to do that. You will find that these principles we've talked about, listening, communicating, and actively engaging, do cross over sometimes. But if you view them as a cycle, then hopefully you'll make sure that you don't become really good at listening, but then do all the work yourself, or become really good at telling people what's going on, but not so good at listening to what the community really actually want or need. These two websites, Farnborough Community Shop and Fittleworth Stores, are really good examples of ways that people communicate and engage and give people a chance to engage and listen to their community. So do take a look at both of those websites. They show clear information about volunteering, they show ways to support the businesses, and they show up-to-date news and photos and that kind of thing. So they're really, really good examples. I'm sure they wouldn't mind you contacting them to find out how they've done it. So we're heading towards the end. Before I show you this template we have created, I just want to highlight some key do's and don'ts. Firstly, do's. It's important to know your community. All those things I talked about, mapping and getting out there and talking to them, they're really, really important. It's really good if you can be creative. Keep it simple, but do something a bit different to get people's interest. Do keep it simple, as I say. Help people feel safe so they feel safe enough to get involved and also safe enough just to share their ideas. Make sure you haven't forgotten anyone. Make sure you're empowering the whole of your community and giving them a voice. And start it early and continue it all the way through. The don'ts, don't ignore your community. It's really easy to do, especially once you're up and running. Don't be overly promotional. Try and get that balance between come and buy this product and we want you to engage, and this is how the impact we're having with the community, on the community. Try not to talk at people or make unrealistic promises. Don't ignore any negative feedback. That's an opportunity to mitigate that concern and make sure that concern doesn't become something more serious. And make sure that you're not refusing to adapt or evolve. If several people are making the same suggestion, maybe it's an idea that you need to look into that. So don't presume you know everything. So as part of the email you'll get after this webinar, you will receive a template that we have created. This is a new template. We'd love your feedback on it when you get it. You will get a blank version and you will get an example of it. So this is the template, and this is a template for a community engagement plan. So it's 2 pages to the template. Page 1 is all about understanding your community. So all those things we talked about at the beginning, that's where you would recall that. You're looking at where we are, who we are, etc. And page 2 is this is for the engagement in each phase, sorry. So you can see that we've got listen, communicate, and actively engage across the top. So those are your columns, and then you've got rows for each of the different stages. We're just going to have a quick look at the example to give you a bit of an idea of what I mean. So this is the example. Please don't just take this and use it. You need to adapt it for your own community. I have made all of this up. So the content here is just to demonstrate that. So take it and do what you need to. So where we are on this one, we've recorded things like the village is 3 miles wide, it merges with neighbouring villages, the parish connects 3 villages, anything else that you think is relevant, you know, you've got a river running through it, those kinds of things which might be relevant to how you're going to actively engage and communicate and listen to your community later on. Then you've got a big space here, you've got these 2 boxes here for who we are, or sort of who are we, and also who don't we know but we should. So you've got some stats here. These are taken from a census. So this is percentage of the different age groups, percentage of those who are working, full-time, etc., number of households, how many are second homes. And then these groups here, these are the people we should know, but I don't know any, nobody on the steering committee knows these, but we need to make sure we're speaking to these people. The next 3 boxes are fairly self-explanatory. Some of them we've covered, what activities and facilities are already in your community. So try not to just put village hall, but if there are particular things that go on there, write those on so that you've got different groups that you know that you need to contact. And then on the right there, you'll see who are the key stakeholders in your community. We've talked about that. Lots of different ideas there, but you'll have your own. The box in the middle is How does your community already communicate? These are things that you can latch onto. These are things that you can use that you don't have to create. Do you have a village email or a parish news? Is there a notice board that everybody looks at? These are the places people will be looking already. So you want to use those as well as your other things that you decide to use. So, having a look at the engagement, this is the discover phase. I've isolated that just so it doesn't look like too much information for this explanation. As you can see, you've got those three principles. You've got listen, communicate, and actively engage. And then you've got the questions there. So it's what do you need to find out about from the community? What do you need to tell the community about? And what areas do you need the community to get involved in? So that's what you're thinking about when you're filling this in. And then you've got two boxes here, what and how. The what is really not just what, it's also why. So you're putting here, this is your starting point for thinking, what is it that we need to be listening to our community about? But why do we need to be doing that? We need to find out, is there a need for the business? We need to find out what's the appetite for being involved. With the communicate one, we need to find we need to be telling people about the idea for the business. We need to explain what a community-owned business is, etc. And then underneath there's space for you to put the how. So this page you might find extends as you put your list of questions and your list of the hows of how you're going to do this. So it might be that in order to establish if there's a need for the business, you might want to arrange, we've decided we're going to arrange one-to-one meetings with our stakeholders because we want to discuss their thoughts, their ideas and their concerns. In order to tell the community about the idea for the business, we are going to advertise a public meeting via the village email. So be really specific here about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and why. And then you can also use this. This is your tool. You can use it. You could put somebody's initials beside it or highlight it different colors so you know who's going to do that. You could put deadlines on there, etc. And then you repeat exactly the same thing for each phase. You may want to do that at the beginning. You may have loads of ideas and put them all down. But what I would imagine the way that you would use it is you fill the first one in fully to start with, put down any ideas you've got for the other stages. And as you go through the different phases, you come back to this at the beginning of those phases and make sure you are thinking about how you're listening, communicating and actively engaging your community. You'll find when you get the template, there are also some bits of guidance in the comments. So I've just put one or two bits in the guidance there for you. So that's what you'll receive, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. Do give us your feedback. So lastly, some final tips for you. Make any community engagement interactive and visual. Think about how you can make it inclusive and engage with all those members of your community, making it accessible to everybody. Consider your demographics. Don't think because this worked for that community shop over there that that's definitely going to work for yours. It might do, but you might need to adapt something for your community. Be clear about the purpose. Make sure you're really clear telling people what you are trying to achieve and why it's beneficial to the community. And be clear about the timescales and the ambitions for the so you're realistic with people about what is actually going to be happening and what's needed to happen. And then drip feed and be relentless. So it's all about drip feeding. Just because you know it doesn't mean to say other people know it. Just because you think about it every day and sleep and dream it doesn't mean to say other people do. So just continue that drip feeding and be relentless with that. And lastly, be positive. If you're expressing positivity for your project, then that will influence how other people view it as well. So I'm going to hand back to Diane now to see if there are any questions.
Feeling is responding to truth and result to everything. Something like that. It's actually feels fun.